Hi everyone, welcome to class. My name's Claire and today I'm taking you through a 45-minute beginner's yoga practice. So today will be very simple again, and if you've been following over the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring forward bends and backward bends and yogic breathing. We'll recap on all of that today and we'll be exploring this idea of counter poses and balance in our practice. So as we move through a physical practice, the idea is to balance out the body as much as possible. So that's why you'll see a lot of forward bending and backward bendings grouped together. Often we'll spend a little bit more time in backward bends just because our modern day lifestyles leave us hunched over computers and seated in couches, and the extra time in backward bends just opens up our posture and balances out our posture a little bit more to make up for that. So if you're practicing at home and you're doing your own unique practice, you might be doing some twists and you might spend a little bit more time on the side that's holding on to a bit more tension. But generally, if you're going through a yoga practice with a teacher, if there's lots of people in the class, the twists, there will be the same amount of time on both sides. So everyone's walking out feeling as balanced as possible. So you can either adapt the practice to you and what you need to find more balance, or if you're going through a practice, often we'll spend the same amount of time in different sides just to help keep this sense of balance as well. So today we'll start, as we usually do, on our back in Supta Baddha Konasana. And we'll bring our feet together, knees apart, and we'll lay back over a bolster or a pile of cushions or pillows. And we'll just walk the heels up a little closer to the body, flip our palms to face the ceiling. If that's not feeling good on the inner thighs, you can also walk the feet to the outside edge of your mat and rest the knees together like this. And if you're not feeling good through your spine at all, you can get rid of one of the pillows or just lay flat on your back. Just adjust so that you're starting feeling quite comfortable. And once we're there, close your eyes and leave behind any outside thoughts. So forget about what you need to do later in the day or what you've been doing earlier in the week, and just start to drop into the present moment and just simply notice how you're feeling in this moment. Start to scan through your body and pause at those areas where you're feeling a little bit of tension or resistance. Start to smooth some of those areas out just by focusing in with your mind. Keep visualizing the tension melting away from the body. Keep allowing the muscles to soften. And then gradually feel as though you're moving towards and arriving at a place where the whole body feels very relaxed and still. And then from here, we'll bring our attention to our breath and just notice how our breath is flowing in and out of the body. And then start to find a little more depth. A couple of weeks ago, we started to talk about diaphragmic breathing and exaggerating the rise and the fall of the belly to try and help retrain the diaphragm to move a little more dynamically so we get more depth in our breath. So let's come back into this diaphragmic breathing now. As we inhale, exaggerate the expansion of the belly. And as you exhale, the belly button falls back towards the spine. And as you inhale, the belly expands like a balloon, belly rises. And as you exhale, the belly button falls back towards the spine. We keep going like this, just focusing in on this deeper breath where the inhales and exhales are matching in length. So we're just exaggerating the rise and the fall of the belly. And we'll do a couple more rounds. And then we'll move into our yogic breathing. So we break up the breath a little bit more now. As we inhale, the first half of the inhale, the belly rises just as it has been. Second part of the inhale, the chest expands and the clavicle bones lift. First part of the exhale, the chest falls and contracts. Second part of the exhale, the belly button falls back towards the spine. So as we inhale, belly rises, chest expands. Exhale, chest falls, stomach falls. Inhale, belly rises, chest expands. Exhale, chest falls and stomach falls. So it starts to feel like there's a rippling wave of motion moving up and down the torso as you breathe. Keep going and start to move towards your deepest breath that is still quite comfortable. We don't want the breath to feel forced or strained in any way, but we want to feel as though we're expanding our lung capacity. Moving towards our deepest, most comfortable breath. Keep going. Inhale, belly rises, chest expands. Exhale, chest falls and stomach falls. Inhale, belly rises, chest expands. Exhale, chest falls and stomach falls. We'll do 4 more rounds in our own time. Tuning into the smooth, wave-like rippling motion through the torso, coordinating with our deep, smooth breath. And then after the next round, just forgetting about controlling the movement of the chest and just come back to the belly breathing where the belly expands and rises on the inhale and falls back gently with the exhale. And we'll take a mental note to try and remember to bring this deeper belly breathing through the entire practice with us. And we'll start to wiggle the fingertips and toes. And when you're ready, let's roll over to the right side and just kick the pillows or the bolster out of the way, and we'll start on our back. Starting to explore this idea of balance and counter poses. So the arms come out to the side, and we'll just shuffle our hips over to the right slightly. Draw both knees into the chest and then swivel them over to the left down towards the floor. If you find that the knees are hanging there and you're holding on to a lot of tension because the body won't allow for the knees to melt all the way down into the floor, grab onto your pillows or your bolster and pop it underneath your knees. It's more important that the shoulders stay anchored and the back stays flat on the floor, the upper spine, than it is for those knees to reach the floor. We can bring our left hand on top of the right knee and just rest it there to weigh the legs down, and then reach out through the right arm, look out towards the right fingertips, and just feel into this complete twist of the spine. We'll stay here for about 5 long, deep breaths. Every inhale, fill the lungs with air. And as you exhale, that's a really nice moment to visualize the tension melting away from the body. Check that you're still using that deep belly breathing, diaphragmic breathing. We have about 2 more deep breaths from here. And then we draw the knees to the center, drop the feet down towards the floor, shift the hips over to the middle of the mat again, and we'll bring our pillows or our bolster over to the other side. Shift the hips over to the left a little bit now, and then we draw the knees into the chest and bring the knees over to the right. If they're hanging there, make sure you've got something underneath for support. I'm going to bring my bolster around to the first side just so I'm not lying on top of the mic pack. But now your knees will be going over to the right, and your head will be looking over to the left. Your right hand will be weighing down the legs. And the reason it's a really good idea to have something underneath the legs if they're not reaching the floor, it means that our nervous system starts to relax a lot more and let go of the tension. If our legs are hanging there, then we're telling our brain, sending signals through our body that our body's stressed and holding on, is trying to protect itself. And that support will allow a really nice softening and release to happen. So 5 deep breaths. Just remember with this idea of counter poses, if we're doing this in a class, we'd do the same amount of time on each side. But if you're doing your own unique practice and you find that one side is a lot tighter than the other, then maybe you would spend just a little bit longer in the side that's feeling the most tension. And that would help you find a lot more balance in your body. So hold for about 2 more breaths. One more deep inhale. And exhale, coming to the center. Just do one last little exercise to start warming up on the floor. As we inhale, the legs lengthen, the toes peel back towards the head, and the arms reach out to the side. As we exhale, we point our toes and draw the knees into the chest. Just a couple more rounds. Inhale, expanding outwards, toes peel back towards the head. And exhale, point the toes and draw the knees into the chest. And we go again. Squeezing the knees into the chest. And then let's roll over to our right side, use our left hand to prop us up, and we'll revisit some of the technique that we have worked on in the last couple of classes. So just get your props handy, your pile of cushions. I think that's all we'll need today. And we'll start to walk from side to side until we can feel our sit bones underneath us. We'll soften our knees, bend our knees, and start to hinge from the hips. You can pop your fingers there to feel into that hinging as you lead forward with the base of your spine, and you start to nuzzle the belly into the thighs. You can grab onto the outside or the inside or the tops of your feet. And we're trying to close that gap between the belly and the thighs as much as possible. So from here, if you feel comfortable, you can start to slide the heels forward a little bit, lengthen through the knees. But the moment you feel like the back is rounding and tension is moving into your back, to allow for that, you need to pull back. So the belly pulls into the thighs, the lower back leads forward. Slide the heels forward, but the moment you get this arching, curving through the back, you need to bend the knees a little bit to keep that nice deep hinge at the hips. And so the spine stays relatively straight and relaxed. Let's hold for 2 more breaths. One more breath. Slide the heels forward. We'll just bring the legs together, give them a little bit of a shake out, and then lean back into the hands, walk the little fingers towards each other. We'll squeeze the shoulders together, draw the belly button forward and start to lift through the heart. Stay for 4 deep breaths. I'll just come around to the side so you can see. So we're just leaning back into the fingertips or dropping all the way down into the hands, walking the little fingers towards each other, squeezing the shoulders together, belly button leads forward, and we lift through the heart, keeping length through the back of the neck. Gentle back bend that's acting as a counter pose for the forward bend we just did. Breathing in, exhale, slowly coming up, and we'll make our way onto all fours or cat-cow just to warm up the spine a little bit more. So, our shoulders are over our wrists, our hips are over our knees, and we start to press down through the backs of our feet. As we inhale, the crown of the head and the tailbone pull up to the ceiling and the belly button pulls to the floor. And as we exhale, the crown of the head and the tailbone pull under and we pull up through the sides. Inhale, head and tail float up. And exhale, curling under. Inhale, head and tail float up. And exhale, head and tail curl under. We pull up through the sides. Let's do about 6 more rounds. Try and coordinate the movement with the breath. And last round. Coming back to neutral spine, and then let's revisit our downward dog technique, which again, I think we worked on last week or the week before. So knees, hips and heels are in a parallel line, and we reach the arms out, and the arms are also in a parallel line. We spread our fingers wide, our middle finger is facing directly forward. And then from here, we tuck the toes under and float the hips up to the ceiling. To start with, keep the knees quite bent and imagine there's a strap underneath your hips, pulling the hips up towards the ceiling. Nuzzle the belly in towards the thighs and start to press the chest through, but don't collapse into your shoulders. Feel as though your underarms are wrapping around towards your heart, the shoulder blades are broadening, the scapular bones are pressing down, and you're active through your shoulders. So from here, keep that lift through the tailbone, and then you can start to lengthen through the knees a little bit if that feels okay. But the moment your back starts to pop out and curve like that, you need to bend the knees because we want to keep that lift through the hips We want to keep the sense that the chest is pressing through. Hold for 2 more breaths. 1 more breath. Roll the knees down towards the floor. Let's have a moment's rest. Touch the toes together, open the knees a little bit, move the hips back towards the heels, and have a moment's rest in child's pose. See if you can drop the head all the way down to the floor. Keep the hands there for support. You can actively press into the hands to bring the hips a little closer to the heels, or you can just allow the body to relax into stillness for a moment. Okay, let's try one more time. Just revisiting downward dog technique. So our knees, our hips and our heels are in a parallel line. We sink the hips back and bring the arms into a parallel line as well. Spread the fingers wide, middle finger is facing forward. And then from here, we tuck the toes under. Imagine that strap is underneath your hips, pulling the hips straight up to the ceiling. But we start with bent knees so we can get that lift happening through the hips. Imagine a string attached to your tailbone, pulling it up. Then start to press the chest through the arms, but don't collapse into the shoulders. Press away from the floor with the hands, wrap the underarms around towards the heart. Just gently broaden through the scapular bones and through the chest. And then you can start to lengthen through the knees if that feels okay for you, but the moment you feel this curving happening, you need to bend again. 2 more breaths. 1 more breath. And then we roll the knees down towards the floor, have a moment's rest, bring the hips back towards the heels. Maybe you can rock the hips from side to side this time. And then let's make our way onto our belly. So coming into a counter pose, back bend, cobra pose, Bhujangasana. So again, this is a little bit of revision. And so our middle finger is lining up with our shoulders, and we've got those locks that I talked about last week. So our shoulders slide up, back, down, and then the elbows draw in. Pressed into the floor, slowly come up. And the moment you lose one of those locks, you know you need to come down. So stay where you are, keep playing around with that on the floor. I'll just come up so that you can see what's going on. So imagine that I'm laying on my front, on my belly, got my hands next to my chest, my middle finger's lining up with my shoulders. I bring my shoulders up, back, down, so really open chest. And then I lock my elbows in, and that's the 4 locks that I want to keep in place as I press away from the floor and lift my chest up. The moment I lose one of those 4 locks that we just put into place, that's the moment I know that I need to bring my chest down to the floor to keep the elbows in and keep the shoulders rolling back and the chest open as much as possible. So let's try that again. So you're on your belly. Your hands are next to your chest. Let's put those 4 locks into place. Draw the shoulders up. That's what we don't want. Draw the shoulders back. Now the chest is open. Draw the shoulders down. Now the chest and the shoulders are in the right place. And then lock the elbows into the side. Try that again. Shoulders up. Squeeze them back. Squeeze them down. Lock the elbows in. That's the 4 locks in place that we want to keep there. And then start to press away from the floor, lift the chest up, and see how high you can bring the chest without losing one of those 4 locks. The loss of one of those 4 locks is the signal that you need to come down a little bit. So keep playing with that, and let's go for a couple more moments, a few more breaths. 4 locks in place, gently squeezing the glutes, press down through the backs of the feet. And slowly come up, peeling away from the floor. The moment you lose one of those locks, you know you need to come down. Hold for 2 breaths. 1 more breath. Resting into the hands, we'll come into a little counter pose, moving the body the other way into child's pose. And then we'll slide the hands next to the chest and come up. So that's just a little bit of a recap on what we've been working on over the last couple of classes. Now I thought I would take you through a simple vinyasa sequence. So vinyasa refers to a style of yoga that coordinates movement with breath. And you probably have heard of Salute to the Sun before. It's a very, very common vinyasa that's been around for a long time. And it's often used as the structure or framework for a lot of other flow or vinyasa sequences. So I'll teach you a very, very simple version of that today, and we can start to get used to the style of vinyasa. But this is a really nice example of that counter pose idea as well, and how we can keep that balance in our practice, because we move from backward bend to forward bend, from backward bend, and we're just coordinating that with the breath in one smooth flowing sequence. So we'll come to the front of the mat, bring the feet into parallel. Before we get started, I just want to just recap some of the standing backward bending concepts that can be applied to lots of different back bends. So when we move into a back bend, just remember we want to squeeze in through the core and the glutes. Imagine a core set of support wrapping around our midline, and then we lift up through the lower spine. Then imagine there's a ledge underneath your scapular bones, and you're starting to peel the scapular bones back onto that ledge. So the tendency with back bends is to just kind of collapse into the lower back, because often we have quite a lot of flexibility through our lower spine. And so we sort of overcompensate and just collapse in, and then a lot of pressure moves into the lower back. So we don't want that. And how we protect the lower back is just that core set of support first. And we're focusing on lifting through the lower spine, and imagine that we're bending from underneath the scapular bones. So let's bring our hands to the heart and just try that a couple of times together. Core engages, glutes engage. Core set of support wrapping around here. We start to lift through the lower spine. Imagine the ledge underneath the scapular bones, and just gently start to peel the scapular bones back onto that ledge. The moment you lose that engagement and that lift through the lower spine, you know you need to pull back and come up again. Try that one more time. And glutes engage, core engages, spine lifts. And then we imagine that ledge underneath the scapular bones, and we start to peel them back onto that ledge, keep length into the back of the neck. And slowly come up. So let's take a little flow, and we'll extend on this next week. So don't worry too much about it. Don't worry about it if you don't get the hang of it this week. We just are starting to explore and have fun with it. So as we inhale, the arms scoop wide, and we take that little upper body arch. Exhale, we fold forward, and we feel into that hinging at the hips. Remember, soften the knees so we can continue to hinge and keep the spine relaxed as we melt to the floor. Inhale, hands slide up the shins, we unravel to flat back. And exhale, melting forwards again, we'll ground down through the hands and walk out into plank. Drop the knees straight away if you need to, but if you can, hover for a moment. Keep the shoulders over the wrists, and then we'll all drop the knees down towards the floor. So this part can get a little bit confusing for some people. So we're going to lower the chest to the point between the hands now, and try and keep the elbows folding back. 8 points to the floor. Slide onto the belly, and then we come up into our cobra pose. Forelocks in place, just as we did before. Inhale to come up. Folding forward, tuck the toes under, send the hips back. We fold into downward dog.
Keep the knees bent so you can keep the hips lifting and the chest pressing through. Then you can start to lengthen through the knees. Soften through the knees. You can choose to walk the feet forward or walk the hands back. So you come back into your forward fold. Inhale, slide the hands up the shins to flat back. Exhale, melting forwards. Inhale, arms scoop wide. And exhale, hands come to the chest. Pause for a moment, just notice how you're feeling. Stay there for a moment. I just want to talk you through that lower from plank to 8 points to the floor. So from our plank, we're dropping our knees down towards the floor, and the tendency for people here is to lower the chest and let the elbows splay out to the side. I'll just show you. So a lot of people do that, but what we're wanting to do is scoop the elbows back and fold them back as we come down. The other tendency is to bring the chest too far forward or too far back. We're trying to aim the chest exactly to the point between the hands here. Slide onto the belly. Inhale, cobra. So I just wanted to show you that. There isn't an alternative if you're feeling like you don't have quite the core strength to lower the chest down there. It's absolutely fine if you let the chest drop a little bit. You could pop a cushion underneath the chest so that you don't bang your chest on the floor. But the other option is, once you drop the knees into supported plank, you could also move the hips back, come down onto your forearms, and then hop the chest forward from there. So that's one option. The other option is to, from here, just very slowly come down onto your forearms, lower yourself down, and then slide the hands back to come up into cobra. So whatever of those versions works for you, just do that. That's completely fine. But otherwise, let's go through the flow again. Hands come to the chest, lengthen through the spine. Engage through the core and glutes and start to lift through the lower spine. Imagine that ledge underneath the scapular bones. And then the arms scoop wide, little upper body arch. Exhale, we dive forward. Remember, we're feeling into that hinging at the hips, the knees soften, so we can nuzzle the belly into the thighs as we collapse forward. Slide the hands up the shins to flat back. Exhale, melting forwards, grounding down through the hands, stepping out into plank. Drop the knees straight away, have a moment's rest. And remember, we want to keep the elbows folding back, and we're aiming the chest to the point between the hands. But there's a few other options. So you could either come back onto the forearms and then hop the chest forward from there, or you can just come forward onto your forearms, lower down, and slide the hands back. Forelocks in place, roll the shoulders back, squeeze the elbows in, and we come up into cobra. Exhale, flowing down. Move the hips back first, and then lead with the hips to come into downward dog. Breathing in. You can either walk the feet forward or walk the hands back. Keep the knees soft to make your way back into forward bend. Slide the hands up the shins to flat back. Exhale, melting forwards. Inhale, arms scoop wide. We come all the way up. And hands come to the heart. Okay, good job. So I think we'll leave the flow sequence there today, but we'll continue on with that and we'll keep breaking it down for next week. But otherwise, let's make our way to the floor and we'll grab onto our pile of cushions or our bolster. And we'll come into a supported bridge pose. So on our back, knees bent, knees, hips and heels are in a parallel line. And we'll press into our feet and lift the hips up and bring our pile of cushions underneath our hips. Good. So we'll just bring our arms out to the side or by our side as long as the palms are facing the ceiling. And we'll close our eyes and just allow the body to settle in here. Take a moment to notice how you're feeling. Notice if there's any changes in your body. Maybe there's a little bit of warmth or a change to the pulse after that vinyasa sequence we just did, the salute to the sun. Feel into this beautiful release through the lower back. And allow the breath to settle back into that deep belly breathing. You might like to have a little play around with lifting one leg up to the ceiling, pointing through the toe or flexing through the foot. Maybe taking the foot through a few little circles. And then place that foot down, other side. And then we'll just stay here for 5 more deep breaths. As we inhale, the belly rises. And as we exhale, the belly falls back towards the spine. Two more breaths. Last deep inhale, exhale completely, and then as we inhale, lift the hips up, get rid of the cushions or the bolster, and lower the spine vertebrae by vertebrae down towards the floor. We come into a counter pose, cross the ankles, open the knees, and we'll draw the knees in and take a little rock from side to side. And then unraveling the ankles, dropping the feet down towards the floor, we'll grab onto our cushions and bring the cushions over to the left first. And we're going to finish with the same spinal twist we did at the start of the practice. So the arms come out to the side, shift the hips over to the right. The knees pick up and they circle over to the left and rest them on top of your bolster or your cushions, and we'll bring the left hand on top to keep the knees high and grounded. The right arm extends out to the side. We look out to the right fingertips and just melt into the floor here. As you scan your awareness down the spine, just notice if there's any changes from the first twist that you did. Notice if there's any more of a sense of ease. Then we take 5 deep breaths from here. And one last deep inhale. Exhale, draw the knees into the chest, drop the feet down towards the floor, bring the hips to the center, and then we bring the props over to the other side. And then we shift the hips over to the left, draw the knees up, and then we'll bring the knees all the way over to the side and use the right hand to weigh down the knees. And again, I'm just going to come over to the other side again so that I'm not lying on the mic pack.
but you'll keep your knees over to the right, you'll look your head over to the left. And just melting into the floor here. Down your awareness down the spine and notice if there is any changes to the first twist that you did. Staying here for 5 breaths, so there should be about 4 more breaths to go. Two more breaths from here. One more deep inhale. And as you exhale, draw the knees back into the center, drop the feet down and shift the hips to the center of the mat. So your spine is straight. And then a little counter pose, draw the knees into the chest again, cross the ankles, take a little rock from side to side. And then we'll bring the legs long. And the palms can face the ceiling. And from here, let's do a little scan through our body just to notice how we're feeling, noticing what feels new or different. Starting with the most obvious changes, things like certain joints might be feeling a little bit more freedom. And gradually bringing your awareness to more and more subtle changes. And you might like to think about how this idea of counter poses might have created more balance within your own body. Allow your breath to settle back into your natural everyday breath. And still staying completely present, start to shift your internal focus outwards and start to sense the outside day. And you can start to wiggle the fingertips and toes, bringing a little movement back into the body. And then take your time making your way onto your right side. And then finally to sit any way you prefer, either cross-legged or sitting on your heels. Okay, thank you so much for coming to practice with me, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you can understand how you can use counter poses and different postures to create more balance within your own body. And like I mentioned before, if you're doing that in a class, we'll be spending most of the time, equal amounts of time on the different sides and things like that, but you can adapt it to your own practice at home and linger a little longer in those sides that are feeling the most tension so that you create balance within your body. So have a lovely day, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.